Well, Trump just shocked the world over Gaza. Was it a bold move or is it totally insane? Some are calling it the Nakba 2.0. Friend of the show, George Galloway, who hosts the Moats show, just called it Trump's Nakba. Is that too harsh? We'll discuss, just for some context here, the original Nakba happened in 1948 when Israelis killed, displaced hundreds of thousands of Palestinians. Britain, of course, the United Nations worked hand in glove to basically come up with the plan. I'm simplifying it, of course, but the Arabs rejected it. But the United Nations and Britain said, yeah, this is what we're going to do. So they went along with it and did it. But it didn't matter. They were ethnically cleansed. They were removed from their lands. So are we facing now a repeat of that? Has it already happened? What comes next? Is President Trump's quote, here it is, by the way, that just sent shockwaves through the world. The fallout has been fast and furious. Everyone trying to parse out what the president meant when he said this yesterday about Gaza. Listen.
The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it, too. We'll own it and be responsible for dismantling all of the dangerous unexploded bombs and other weapons on the site, level the site and get rid of the destroyed buildings, level it out, create an economic development that will supply unlimited numbers of jobs and housing for the people of the area.
Where exactly are you suggesting that they should go? And two, are you saying they should return after it's rebuilt? And if not, who do you envision living there?
I envision a world, people living there, the world's people. I think you'll make that into an international, unbelievable place. I think the potential in the Gaza Strip is unbelievable. And I think the entire world, representatives from all over the world will be there, and they'll live there. Palestinians also. Palestinians will live there. Many people will live there.
So he said that, but then a little, separately, Peter Doocy asked specifically about the Palestinians from Fox News. He asked this question, and Trump kind of gave a totally different answer, I guess. Listen.
Peter?
Would Palestinians have the right to return to Gaza if they left while the rebuilding was happening?
It would be my hope that we could do something really nice, really good, where they wouldn't want to return. Why would they want to return? The place has been hell. It's been one of the meanest, toughest places on earth.
So
and Netanyahu is sitting there saying, yes, it's mean and tough. We are mean and tough on them.
Mean and tough. All right. According to sources I've spoken with in Tel Aviv, Israeli reaction, they were shocked by this. They didn't see this coming. They didn't see this coming at all. And according to Real Clear Politics, Trump's own staff didn't see this coming. Ryan Grimm is the co-founder of the independent media website Dropsite News, co-host of Counterpoints on YouTube. And Ryan joins us now for some perspective on all of this. Ryan, I know you've been covering this deeply. You've had like 24 hours to kind of digest this. It seems like the Trump White House was kind of caught blindsided by this.
Which is funny because Trump himself said, this is not a decision that I have taken lightly. This is, the result of serious deliberation. Whatever those serious deliberations were, they apparently did not include senior administration officials, or, as you just pointed out, by the look of his face, Benjamin Netanyahu. It doesn't appear like that even came up in the meeting between the two of them. Since then, Rubio has made some interesting kind of cleanup comments, and I think we'll probably see, for as long as Rubio is serving as Secretary of State, this will be one of the roles that he plays. The way that Rubio tried to reframe what Trump said, he said, it was not meant in a hostile manner. It was meant in a generous manner. And actually, as I was rewatching it just now, you can always tell when Trump moves from what he's reading or the teleprompter to his own language.
Right.
What was written down clearly was, we will take over Gaza. And then he added, and we will own it and it will be amazing, something like that. And then he goes back to reading again and he says, we will, oversee the reconstruction. And so if you try to piece together what was written and match it with what Rubio was saying, what Rubio said, it was a offer made out of generosity, not hostility, that the U.S. is willing to do a lot of the reconstruction work and there are enormous, like untold numbers of unexploded ordnance, throughout Gaza. Like, that's a fact. Like, that does need to be dealt with. So what he's saying is we will do that. We will do that demolition work, and we will do the reconstruction work. And Rubio even implied and even said out that they'd be coming back.
The unexploded.
Yeah, who dropped?
Yeah.
That's a good question. So Trump was there with Netanyahu. He could have asked Netanyahu if he had any idea, where, how this became a demolition site, or where all of this ordnance came from.
Basically, he called it a hellhole.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was a natural disaster. In just an unfortunate circumstance which is the way that he was talking about it. And to hear him talk about it with Netanyahu sitting right there was a little extra deranged. But so to take Trump seriously, the problem with his suggestion there is that it's not completely uninhabitable. Hundreds of thousands of Palestinians can return to their homes, and their homes are not destroyed. There are also other places within Gaza that people could go. They could also go to the West Bank. They could go to the Negev Desert. To your point, who did this destruction? Israel did this destruction. Therefore, why are they asking Egypt and Jordan? And he's mentioned maybe there'll be some other places that'll handle this. Like, if people need to be moved while there's reconstruction, it's Israel's responsibility to house them somewhere. And then they're going to have a right of return to Gaza because Israel doesn't want them there.
So many things to unpack here because Hamas, right? This is at the heart of it, right? So Hamas, according to sources I've spoken with, is largely still intact, functioning. So is the United States now going to be a police force there to go and try to stop Hamas? This is why so many MAGA supporters and so many Trump supporters, I see them in our chat right now saying, I don't want us in the Middle East at all. Get out of the Middle East.
Right.
Yeah.
We didn't sign up for this. So are American forces now going to be involved in trying to root out Hamas?
One of Trump's attractive qualities to a lot of MAGA supporters was his willingness to call out the Republican establishment for its adventurism in the Middle East, specifically the Iraq War. To then come full circle and say, we're going to go back in, which he said, he was asked directly, does this mean U.S. boots on the ground? And Trump said, if that's what it means, then yes. To Rubio today said, no, of course not. We're not doing that. So, you make of it what you will, but like, he's still the president. He still said it, but you're right.
Right.
If he's trying to get 1.7 million people out who don't want to leave because they're being told they're not going to be allowed back in, then you have to take them out violently. And that means troops, and that means casualties.
I've tried to come around this, to envision this utopia that he has. Maybe for anyone who's ever been to Dubai or Sharm el-Sheikh, and you see these cities that are being built up as international places of travel and commerce, and they're beautiful, and people who live in those countries are really proud of those places. So there is maybe this idea, because it's beachfront property, that it could be this beautiful tourism mecca that is redone and controlled by the United States and then handed off. It's really hard. It's hard, right? Because that the two-state solution is going to be fought in a bloody way in perpetuity. And there's this like utopia that seems so unlikely. And so most of us just don't know what to do with those two conflicting visions. Plus the idea that if Trump or one of his successors is not a Republican, the Democrats would just give it up and go back to fighting. So I think that's what I'm chewing on. Are you also digesting something like that?
You're right. Interestingly, like there is a path. Like Hamas has said that it is willing to be just a basically rebranded element of a technocratic government, and it'd be willing. There are indications that under the right circumstances they'd be willing to disarm and engage in the political process. And then if you have Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, funding the redevelopment of Gaza, and you have, the Palestinians would love nothing more than to have, serious reconstruction funded in a peaceful way and in a way that allows them to benefit as well as everyone else in the world. Go ahead, come visit Gaza. That just like you visit Doha or Dubai. But you're right. The obstacle there is Israel. Israel doesn't want to see that. Israel's currently not allowing in basic humanitarian aid, let alone like even bulldozers or the kinds of things that you would need to begin taking steps in that direction. So that is an impasse that Trump would have to use political capital to get through. And then, exactly what happens when somebody else comes.
Right. Let me just follow up on this, because you speak about humanitarian aid, and then in the same day, the White House announces that it will no longer participate with certain United Nations organizations such as UNRWA, which is the main organization that has funneled aid into there. And Israel says they helped plan and execute October 7th, so they're our main enemy. Yeah. And so Trump then does something exactly what they would want. And so do you think that that's possibly something he gave Israel in order to work this deal or something? He's it's interesting. He's constantly giving Israel things. In the same press conference, he said that within 4 weeks, he's going to decide whether or not he's going to allow Israel to annex the West Bank, which is, and the whole thing is, these are wild just constructions to even think about. Like, who's the United States to allow Israel to annex, territory that they have no right to, right. Or either way, he's saying he's going to make that decision. Miriam Adelson gave him more than $100 million, and it was reported that when she gave it to him, that was her demand, that he allow for the annexation of the West Bank, just like she previously demanded that he move the capital, the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, which he did, and he's very proud of. He also brags about how he quote unquote gave them the Golan Heights, which they've since expanded their control over. So it's this given push and pull where he's consistently giving them things that Democrats would never even dream of giving them, yet also then pushing them in the other direction, like pushing them to do a ceasefire. When if Kamala Harris were elected, we'd still have the low grade bombing campaign going on, presumably. There was no indication that she was willing to use any pressure or political capital to get to a ceasefire. So it's a very confusing moment.
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to be positive here because at the heart of it, Trump, we know, negotiated a ceasefire. So there's a ceasefire in place. People are not dying largely in the way that they were before.
Well, they are in Lebanon. So.
Yes, but I mean, right now, taking the wins where we can get them, small, like incremental wins. So, but it's also the criticism of Trump is that he usually ends up going with the thing that the last person in the room has told him. Friend of the show, Colonel Douglas McGregor, who worked for Trump, said that this was the big frustration, that the last person to speak to Trump is where Trump usually went with his decision-making process. And I couldn't help but thinking if we, Jared Kushner and his involvement. We know Jared Kushner's involvement in this area and had vowed to turn Gaza into a Riviera. And all this waterfront property could be very valuable. And so did he have his ear before Benjamin Netanyahu came to town? Was Jared Kushner in the room, like talking about this utopia in Gaza that could be built? There's memes floating around in Israeli press today of Trump Tower Gaza. Like,
of course.
I want to say I don't believe
it. There's been reporting that Jared's idea was part of the mix here. That Jared has been talking to him about this, and that he and Witkoff and Trump are talking about it like the real estate guys that they are. Trump, it's all fundamentally who he is. You heard him talking about North Korea, I bet, recently, where he was talking about all the amazing coastline that North Korea's got. He can't unsee dollar signs and waterfront real estate, and so the idea that he's going to be able to successfully move them to Egypt and Jordan is an utter fantasy. Like, it's not like asking Mexico to send 10,000 National Guard to the border. You're asking those governments to likely collapse. So, and no government is going to willingly strike a deal that would likely lead to their own collapse. There's no amount of pressure you could put on somebody to get them to do that.
We'll get you out of here on this, which is Scott Adams' tweet today. I'm just curious your thoughts on. I think a lot of people right now watching our show, I can just see it in the chat room here. A lot of people are saying, kind of struggling with this, right? It's not. I don't think it's cut and dry. It's not cut and dry. If you think it's cut and dry, I think you're an idiot, quite frankly. But Scott Adams tweeted this. He said, "I hate that sleeping on this changed my opinion. His first reaction, he said, is hell no. I hate everything about this. The United States going into Gaza, taking over Gaza, funding Gaza, all of that. Then he said, I slept on it. Then he said, current opinion, Trump just ended a perma-war between Hamas and Israel by informing them that they will no longer have a common border, one way or another. It's not a bluff, but it will have the effect of sharpening the thinking of everyone in the region. I'd expect some frantic counter-offer. So he's basically saying that in many ways, the United States is playing bad cop here, where now you'll have the Arabs and Israelis kind of coming together saying, yeah, we really don't want the U.S. here. So let's come to some sort of agreement. Is he playing bad cop, Trump?
I do think Adams is correct there that you don't want to necessarily judge what Trump says by what Trump says, because you don't know whether or not what he says is actually going to become reality, or if he's just saying it because he has some other motives going on. And in this case, he may be trying to reset the negotiations. The key, we're coming up to the key second phase of the ceasefire agreement, and there is a ton of pressure from Netanyahu's right, and I think Netanyahu's own impulses are to not move into the second phase of the ceasefire and to restart the war. Netanyahu's been pretty clear that would actually be his preference here. He doesn't have a day after plan for Gaza, and he worries about his own political future, and just low grade continuing the war forever is a preferable political outcome for him. That would condemn hostages and captives that are still in Gaza to death. Aside from the absolute calamity that it would bring back to Gaza, and there is a lot of hope, I think, among the Trump's circle that wants to see a broader Mideast deal, that Trump will figure out a way to make sure that Netanyahu does not blow up this ceasefire deal. So is he flipping the table over there? Who knows? We'll see, where this goes, but yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I mean, so much disagreement in our chat room right now. I mean, it's just like Linda says, on this point, Trump is terribly wrong. Karen Carpenter in our chat says, I'm so disgusted. Yeah.
We're not sending troops to Gaza. There'll be a riot before anybody agrees to send troops to Gaza.
And Karen says
to get Palestinians out of Gaza. Yeah.
Right.
And then others saying Trump's a genius. This plan's a genius. So there's a lot of disagreement on this right now. Ryan Grimm, co-founder of the independent media website Drop Site News, co-host of Counterpoints. Ryan, thanks so much. I think we're all trying to parse this out today. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on.